This week it's the Audi Q2, 35 TFSI. It's a $48,000 600 car with $10,000 worth of extras, taking it up to $58,445, plus on roads. Let me read you some of the extras that it's got. The metallic paint, the Navara blue, is $11.95. The colour graphic inlays, which I'll show you in a minute, $560. The comfort package, $21.50. Premium Plus package, $31.90. The panoramic glass roof, which we could do without, is $18.50, and the electric rear tailgate is $900. That's an awful lot of packages to put in a car. You may as well just buy the next one up. This model only comes in a front-wheel drive. It's got a 4-cylinder turbo engine, has 110 kilowatts and 250 newton meters, and a 0 to 100 of 8.6 seconds. Now, Audi claims this gets 5.2 litres per 100 kilometres, but at the moment I'm doing almost 10 litres per 100 kilometres. I think this Navara blue paint looks really smart. It's one of my favourite Audi colours. And I think you're better off thinking of this Q2 as more of a hatchback. I'm not really this much shorter than the car, it's just that we're parked at a very odd angle. Of course, as I said, this has the electric tailgate opening option, but have a look at this. Underneath the floor, there's only the subwoofer, and there's about that much space. There's plenty of room in there for a spare tyre. I can't think why they've not put one in. Getting in is pretty easy, but there's not a whole lot of space between my knee and the seat in front. We've got a couple of USB-C outlets here in the back, but other than that, there's no controls, and more importantly, there's no vents. Here in the front seat, you can see where a couple of those additions are. There's the automated parking system. Now this one, unlike some of the Audis we've had in the last few weeks, only does steering. Parking sensors, and that's the stop start off. Have a look at these kind of cool vents though. That's the vent on and off control. And standard with most Audis now is the Audi virtual cockpit, which is just a big LCD screen around 12.3 inches. There's a smaller central tablet, but unfortunately it's not a touchscreen, which is slightly annoying. This patterning here on the dash, some of that at night's got this really nice effect behind it for mood lighting, and all of the surfacing is nice and soft, except for the glove box, which is the usual suspect. Everything else, although it's hard, feels reasonably classy. There's audio controls, there's a normal USB at the front, and that's for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. There's a couple of cup holders, the stop and start button, and this is the control system for the infotainment system. The brake hold, well, that's an option, and in fact a lot of really cool stuff in this car is an option, which is a real shame. The scratch pad on the top of the dial can be used to input some instructions, for example, P. However, I'm right-handed, so I find using these things with my left hand a little bit gumby. I just can't write left-handed, even with something as simple as inputting 2 or 3 letters. You can use voice control as well, of course, or you can try and navigate your way around. But as you've seen, without the use of a touchscreen, this system becomes fairly difficult to use. There are buttons to go to specific functions, which are shortcuts, but you only know all those after you've been driving the car for a while. The steering wheel and active cruise control buttons, they're the same as in pretty much all the other Audis we've been driving this month. It's the end of a very long weekend, and I think everybody's just had enough, which is why we're not going on the highway today, because you can see from the map that it's completely chock-a-block, and only someone who's insane would attempt to go on the high-speed roads, which of course are low-speed roads. Of course, this has got Audi's adjustable armrest, which I like a lot. I think this cabin is really nicely laid out. It doesn't feel luxurious. Of course, this is around Volkswagen Polo size, thereabouts. A little bit more space because it's an SUV style vehicle. And because it's got 4 rings on the steering wheel, it feels a little bit classier than the hard, tacky-placky base model Volkswagen. But make no bones about it, this is still entry level as far as Audi goes. Everything still feels nice though, and the leather seats feel nice, although they're leather appointed seats. And that means that you can't tell what's leather and what's vinyl. Now, if you can't tell, it's probably a good thing. The 110 engine still feels nippy, probably mainly because of this DCT gearbox. Now, most of you who've seen my reviews in the past know that I'm really not a great lover of dual clutch automatics. They're great on a racetrack. And if I pull this back into S, it puts the transmission into sport mode. Now, this car doesn't have drive modes, which is a bit of a shame. So that sports mode is the nearest I'll get. The cabin itself is very quiet. The cruise control really does well. It keeps you at the speed limit pretty much. But when you pull out, I notice that on the freeway, it does take quite a while to wind up. Fuel economy, as I said, is down to 9.4 litres per 100 kilometres with an average speed of 22 kilometres an hour, because we've been using this car the way you'll use it. The suspension doesn't feel as sophisticated as some of the more expensive Audis, but it certainly handles well. I'd invest in some kind of spare tyre for a longer trip, because wasting vast amounts of space like that is just criminal. I found myself using the voice control a fair bit for things like entering addresses and so forth, simply because trying to do it any other way while you're on the move with something other than a touchscreen is virtually impossible. The lane control, of course, is up here on the end of the light stalk, and the cruise control activate button is on the end of the cruise control stalk. I normally don't like an extra stalk. I think on Toyota and Lexus it annoyed me because it didn't work very well. I couldn't see it. All the buttons are illuminated at night, so it makes night driving nice and easy. The lights are in auto mode, so with the wipers and the lights in auto, they do their own thing. When it rains, it comes on. When dusk falls, the lights come on. There's high and low beam adjustment. You don't have to worry about anything. As snappy as this car is, and as lovely as it is to drive around town, I was really left wondering if it was worth the money. Instead of buying the Q2, I wonder why people wouldn't just buy a Q3. It's not much more expensive and you get a little bit more space. So let's round up. The Q2 35 TFSI is a lovely car to drive. Beautiful road manners. It should be more economical than this by a long chalk. I did get out of a more expensive Audi to get into this, and I commented on the ride earlier. The first thing I noticed is that I thought this ride was very, very choppy, because I'd been in something with luxurious air suspension. And that does make a big difference. You heard that bump then? One last word, now I am on private property. My phone will not fit in the wireless charger. An iPhone 15 Pro Max is too big for the space. Now watch this as the lights come on. That beautiful blue down here on the dash and on the center console. I think that's really cute. I'd like to see it on the doors as well, because that's a really beautiful color. And that's all this week for the Audi Q2 35 TFSI. It's been a great week spent with this little car, just doing city duties, nothing out on the highway, and nothing in really tight bends, but it certainly handles the city really, really well. As always, hit like, leave a comment, and just over there, on the little round thing, to subscribe.